So the way the build works is Whirling Slash on the spear sucks up a ground effect, exactly one ground effect, and stores it uh, permanently until you leave the whirlwind that it creates. So you have this whirlwind here. It'll stick around forever until you leave it. Then it explodes. And if you suck a ground effect, then it keeps that ground effect forever. And if you are at the edge of the whirlwind and you use the whirling slash again, it moves the whirlwind. So you can keep moving it with your ground effect. So what we do is we scale a giant ignited ground effect using Incinerate. We make Incinerate do as much damage as possible to make the most damaging ignited ground possible, which we suck up into our whirlwind, which we make giant from passives and support gems. And then we just carry that giant ignited ground through the map. And it, as you can see it pretty much just melts everything because we've scaled up the ignited ground so much. Uh, right now, most of my gear is not great. Like I got these gloves for like 2x. These boots were, I don't know, maybe 10x or something. This is a decent chest piece. Belt was like a couple x. Most of this gear doesn't matter. Your gear doesn't really matter. It's just you want to find some good stuff that gives you defense. You want evasion and max life, and obviously cap your resists. These are for damage though. You want Blackflame rings to always be on when you're pathing because they give you giant ignite magnitude to really scale up that ignited ground even further. Thrill Steel I just have on to make it nicer to map. You know, we move faster, we attack faster, so we can move our whirling slash more quickly because we have a higher attack speed. Doesn't take long to move it. We just do a cheap anoint for some extra magnitude on ignite. We have a shield with good block chance, and we have decent, not very good evasion because again I have pretty bad gear on right now. So my evasion and block chance is not great. You can have much better than this if you spend a little more currency. But also because our AOE is like a giant, huge damage aura, that gives us most of the defense we need too. I hardly ever die because as soon as things get near me, they just die. They can't melee attackers can't hit me because by the time they reach me, they're already dead. Sometimes I might get hit by like an exploding corpse or something from someone else from something out farther away, but generally you solve that by just moving faster. You know, you don't stop. You just keep moving like this. Just keep moving. So I don't die very often. And the way we scale up our Incinerate, so again, this stuff doesn't really matter too much. It's just, other than the Blackflame Rings, that matters for damage. The other stuff is just defense. And then your spear, the damage on the spear doesn't matter at all. It doesn't do a single thing. The only thing that matters on the spear is how fast it attacks, because you want to be able to attack quickly to move your whirlwind more quickly. Also, you want some attributes on it. You probably want dex because this is a pretty attribute hungry build. You need a lot of int, and then you need some dex too for your evasion gear. But you need enough int to be able to cast Incinerate at the highest level you can. Our weapon swap is what we use at the beginning of every zone. So we go into the zone, we cast Incinerate, and we suck it up, and then that's the only time we use that secondary weapon swap. Just the beginning of the zone, one time to cast one Incinerate, and then we carry around the ignited ground for the rest of the zone. So our secondary weapon swap is scaling Incinerate damage as much as we can. So we've got a wand with gained fire damage, extra spell damage, +5 to level of fire spell skills. We've got a Sunsplinter buckler that has +4 to level of fire skills. And our passives for the secondary swap are just raw damage, elemental damage, fire damage, spell damage, more fire damage. Because the only way to scale up the ignited ground is with fire damage, spell damage, elemental damage, and level of fire spell skills. Scaling up the magnitude on that secondary swap when you're doing Incinerate does absolutely nothing. So if you have a bunch of ignite magnitude when you're putting the ignited ground down, that does absolutely nothing. So you don't worry about ignite magnitude on your secondary weapon swap. What we scale that up with is on the primary weapon swap when we're using our spear. That's when the ignite magnitude matters. That's why we have these rings always on when we're mapping, because that's scaling up the damage from the ignited ground that we sucked up. Now, one of the interesting things about this, how this works, is that when you put ignited ground down, it snapshots the power of that ignited ground when you suck it up. So what you can do is, if you want even more damage, and this is generally not required, but I like to do it for pinnacle bosses or just in general because I like to see enemies melt even faster. But you can, before you put your ignited ground down on like once per map, before you do that, you can put some stuff on that will make it even stronger. So you can put this helmet on real quick to give it +1 level of gems. You put these that have a increased damage, corruption, and extra fire damage on them. Real quick, you put on a sunflower. I only have a +4 sunflower right now. You could get this up to a +6. And then I put on these gloves for an extra 118% spell damage. And now all of that damage we just added, which is a ton of damage, is going to get snapshotted into this ignited ground that we suck up and carry with us for the rest of the time. Which is great because these are items that you generally wouldn't want to use. They don't have any like real defense or anything. They're gonna make you squishy if you use them. But it doesn't matter for us because we can just put them on briefly, get all the benefits of using them, all that damage, and none of the downsides. Because after we put them on and we put it into our whirlwind, like so, then we can just take it off and put on our normal mapping stuff. But we still have all the damage we added with that gear inside of a whirlwind. It's keeping all that damage we added. So this is now a supercharged whirlwind of fire, and we still get to use our defensive stuff. But again, that's not necessary. It's just nice to get some extra damage if you want, or if you want to kill pinnacle bosses faster and whatnot. And the main thing for the primary weapon set you want is just a bunch of increased attack area, so we can get that giant whirlwind going, and then also making ailments deal damage faster and do more damage. I have a lot of I like to put points into movement speed and skill speed, just that it makes mapping feel nicer. So I'll be getting more movement speed as I go on. Some here, some here. But the main thing you need is you need a giant AOE so that your aura is really big and protects you a lot by making so that enemies can't get near you. One other thing you can do is if you want sort of a more chill, brain off mode of mapping, when you put your whirlwind down, you can just hold right click and it'll move you forward. You don't have to hit any buttons at all. You just hold right click and you can map that way. It does have some issues, like you'll get stuck in terrain sometimes, which can be annoying. So I don't generally do it. Also, it's going to be a lot slower than just normal running and then hitting one attack. But it's not like super slow. And in maps where there isn't like a lot of rocks and stuff that you can get stuck on, it can be kind of nice to just turn your brain off and just hold right click and watch things melt around you. And this way, it's even more like an aura because it's always centered on you. Support gems. We have a companion who has he can always shock, and he has a haste aura. Always shock is nice for bosses. Haste aura is just for quality of life when we're mapping, so we can move faster and move our whirlwind faster. The companion has bigger magnitude of shocks and longer lasting shocks and last gasps, that he sticks around in boss fights enough that he can always keep the boss fully shocked because of lasting shock and last gasp. It's always on them. We'll take Mark to make that shock even bigger. Whirling Slash, the two most important gems, the others don't really matter too much, are the AOE support gems. So you have a giant whirlwind with reach and magnified effect. Martial Tempo is just nice to put it down faster, move it faster. Font of Blood is just cute. It gives a little bit of regen because this thing does count as like something you can put fonts on, so that's kind of nice. Incinerate, you just want to put every single damage support gem you can, so it does as much damage as possible. Concentrate Effect, Hourglass, Consider Casting, Control Destruction, Searing Flame. Despair against bosses, pretty standard stuff. Withering Presence. So Despair and Withering Presence, we actually do all chaos damage. There's no fire damage at all because of our Blackflame Rings. They convert. Well, they don't actually convert, but they make enemies that are ignited take chaos damage. So fire resistance doesn't do anything for enemies. The only thing that matters for them is the chaos res. So we lower that chaos res with despair, and we make them take more chaos damage with wither. I have a megalomaniac jewel that gives, where is that? There. It gives a wither away and explosive impact. Wither away makes our wither more potent and withers enemies that get on a presence. Explosive impact is just for even more AOE to make the whirlwind even bigger. The explosion chance thing, I don't know if it actually works. I haven't seen it. I haven't really noticed it doing anything, but also we just kind of melt things anyway, so it might be hard to notice anyway if it was working. I have a +2 Prism of Belief for Incinerate. +3 is a good goal that I'm working towards to get quite a bit more damage with that +3, but it's kind of expensive. One of the nice things about this build is that it's really incremental how you upgrade the damage. Like most of the damage upgrades are coming from getting a higher level of Incinerate. So you can start off with like a focus in your secondary weapon swap that gives +2 to spell skills, and then later on you can get a +3 Sunsplinter buckler, and then you can work up to a +4 buckler like I've got here. Same idea for wand. You can start like +2 or 3 and get up to 5. Same for Sunflower or Fireflower. You can start at 4, which is not very expensive, and work up your way up to 6, and eventually you can get up to level 40 Incinerate. I'm only getting up to, let's see here, against bosses. I think I'm only at 36. Yeah, 36. So this can go 4 higher, and that would be like what 80% more damage, something like that. So it can go a lot higher still. Yeah, 63% more damage it would be with 4 more levels, just from those 4 extra levels. You can also get, I only have a level 19 gem right now, so you can get that up to 20. You can get a corruption on that level 20 gem to get it up to 21. So there are a few different ways you can get up to max level 40 here and cap the incinerate damage. So right now it's doing 1,000,000 DPS against pinnacle bosses, but yeah, just with getting 4 more levels of incinerate, that would bring it up to about 1.6 million damage per second. And that's not even included. There's other like ways we can upgrade this too. I mean, I don't have every single passive that would do more damage. Like I could take these passives too to get even more magnitude. So there are more ways to get even more damage. I think the damage is already enough. So I would probably just go for like quality of life stuff like movement speed, skill speed. You could go for more defense if you feel like you're dying a lot. You can get more evasion, more block chance because you've got a buckler that has high block chance in your main weapon swap, so you can scale up your block. One other thing is that there are one issue I've run into is like there are maps that have elevation changes, like there'll be like hills and stuff, and the whirlwind seems to be affecting a pretty narrow range of elevation. So sometimes there'll be like an enemy that's like in the whirlwind. By the way, this looks like it's the eye of the hurricane, and it doesn't affect anything. But no, if an enemy's here, they're also going to get damaged. If they're in any of this part, the entire area, they're going to get damaged. But sometimes though you'll be in like a map and there's like a hill, and you're standing here and they're right next to you, but they're not getting ignited for some reason, and it's because their elevation is like a little bit lower than you, a little bit higher than you, and they're not getting affected by the whirlwind because of that. And in that case, you have to like move it around a little bit and try to find the sweet spot where it'll affect them, which can be a little bit annoying sometimes. But it's not very common. Most maps are fairly flat, so it's not an issue I've run into too often. But it is just something to watch out for. I am playing as a Ritualist Huntress because they have this increased effect of rings and amulets, and also they have an extra ring slot and more movement speed, which I love movement speed. So the increased effect of rings and amulets, since we use Fireflower when we're like snapshotting the Incinerate damage, 25% more effective of this is actually just an extra fire skill level, which is huge. Like a gemling could also get more skill levels; they get +2. But as a ritualist, we also get an extra ring slot, and these rings do so much damage that I think the highest damage version of this is probably going to be ritualist because of these really good rings and getting extra skill level from the amulet. Um, that said, you don't even need the extra skill level necessarily to get to 40. If you've got like a level 6 Fireflower, a level 4 Sunsplinter, level 3 Prism, level 5 Wand, you got a level 20 Corrupted Gem to get to level 21. That would be up to level 40 without even needing the Ritualist ability. But the Ritualist will get you that extra +1 level earlier on before you can get to that end game state, which is nice. And yeah, again, the rings are a huge damage increase, so getting an extra ring slot and more effective the rings is absolutely massive. Uh, and one, we don't really use mana because the only time we use mana, essentially, is when we put Incinerate down at the very beginning of the map, um, and we get enough to make the Incinerate, and that's all we need. Because for the rest of the map, we're just using Whirling Slash, and you can use a level 1 gem on that, and it won't make any difference at all. And then you have no mana problems at all. So that means we can just take this reduce max of mana for free. Doesn't affect us at all. So we don't have any downside for this extra ring slot either. So that's nice.